Germany's U-boats waged an undersea war that shook the Allies to their core. Now, you can take command of one of these steel hunters. This is Lone Wolf, U-boat Command, a solo print-and-play wargame where every sonar ping, depth charge, and torpedo salvo carries you closer to legend, or to a watery grave. Lone Wolf cuts through the clutter. Streamlined rules, razor-sharp tactics, campaign progression, all in just 30 to 60 minutes with only 13 pages of rules. Manage fuel, torpedoes, your noise level, and crew stress on a single sheet. Unleash precision ambushes under moonless skies and slip away before the next turn. This is undersea warfare, distilled to perfection. In this video, we'll dive straight into gameplay, running through the first few turns of a mission. Watch as we issue critical orders and launch our first torpedo strikes. Let's dive right in. No pun intended. We'll start with the game setup. This game we will be playing the Happy Times, the 1941 Atlantic Ocean campaign map. Let's draw our captain first. Captains confer special abilities that can be used to help your mission. I've drawn Captain Schultz, our risk-taker. Once per turn, he may add one noise to re-roll a single die in the U-boat phase. Excellent. Next, let's place a white cube below night on the time tracker. Nighttime makes spotting harder, but also makes your U-boat stealthier by reducing your noise by 1, which is your detection rating. Now we fill up your resources. Place 3 dice inside your torpedo tracker with an overall value of 16. Also fill your fuel tracker with a combined dice value of 18. Finally, place a red die in your noise tracker with a value of 2 to show how stealthy you are. The lower the better. The last steps are to place a black cube on the surface status box to show that your U-boat is currently surfaced and not submerged just yet. Place another black cube, which represents your U-boat, on the campaign map. Place it on the circle labeled base. Fuel's full, torpedoes stocked, noise minimal. Let's dive in. Every U-boat phase begins with you replenishing your order cubes. Place 4 white order cubes on the order tracker. These represent how many actions you have. Let's start with some movement orders. To make our way into the Atlantic Ocean, we'll place 2 order cubes here. In general, we can place as many order cubes as there are traced boxes present on each order, which, depending on the order, are usually 1 to 2 orders cubes max. Because we are surfaced, we move 2 grids for each order placed here. But this will also cost us 2 fuel. Reduce the fuel tracker by -2. Next, we must roll for each order cube used to move. For each roll of 1 to 2, we suffer an additional penalty by increasing our noise levels by 1. Moving fast on the surface reduces our stealth. We roll a 1 and a 4. That roll of 1 will increase our noise by 1, increasing our level from a 2 to a 3. Finally, we move 4 grids southwest to the open ocean. We remove the 2 order cubes from the movement order and discard them. We now have 2 order cubes left. We decide to allocate 1 order cube to an evade order and our last order cube to the communication order. The communication order represents the Germans contacting naval HQ or other U-boats and asking for coordinates of Allied convoys or friendly supply subs that can restock you with fuel and torpedoes. We want to use it to reveal an enemy convoy. We roll a die for each order cube allocated, and we roll a 5. Perfect, exactly as we needed. communication orders only work on rolls of 5+ to discover the location of an enemy convoy. Thank God for HQ. We now place a blue cube representing a convoy on the campaign map. We must now roll a die to deploy it randomly. We roll a 6, and so we place the blue cube under the deployment zone labeled 6. Remove the order cube from the communication order, and unfortunately, each time you use a communication order, no matter how many order cubes are used, increases your noise by +1, as the Allies can sometimes triangulate your position through wireless communications. Finally, we move on to the evade order, which lets you roll a die to try and reduce your noise level. We roll a die for each order cube placed here and roll a 1, which fails. We are now officially out of orders after discarding our last order cubes, and we move on to the convoy phase. During the convoy phase, convoys on the campaign map will move towards the safety of their ports, and if an engagement is active, ships on the engagement map also move towards safety. Each campaign map has a small section to guide you on how convoys move on the map. In this case, the Atlantic map, convoys roll a die, and depending on the result, move 1 or 2 grids. We rolled a 6, and so the convoy only moves 1 grid. And because the convoy is below the red line of the map, it moves diagonally up towards the British Isles. Because there is no active engagement, there is no need to move ships on the engagement map. Now let's move on to the event phase, where you will roll 1 die only if there is no active engagement and consult the mission event chart. We've rolled a 4, which is encounter with an escort patrol. It says, if we are within 1 grid of a ship icon on the campaign map, make a detection roll, and if you fail, you are attacked by 2 escorts. Luckily, our U-boat is not within 1 grid of an enemy ship icon, and so we ignore this event. Next up is the detection phase, which we skip because there are no active engagements, and our last rolled event didn't trigger the need for a detection roll as there were no ship icons close enough. With that, we proceed to the final stage of the turn, the end of turn phase. In this phase, we update the time tracker by moving the white cube to indicate the passage of time. When transitioning to daytime, increase the noise tracker by +1, as our U-boat becomes easier to detect during the day. To reflect this change, adjust the noise level die from a 4 to a 5. Now let's skip ahead a bit to the event phase of turn 2 to show you how the engagement map works and how combat against convoys are resolved. After moving again using 2 movement orders and 2 evade orders to reduce our noise level, followed by advancing the convoy during the convoy phase, we arrive at the event phase. Here, we rolled a 6 and triggered the event. A convoy approaches, initiating an unexpected engagement with a convoy consisting of 3 merchant ships, represented by blue cubes, and 2 escorts, represented by red cubes. To begin an engagement, place the black cube, representing your U-boat, on one of the 3 gray spaces in the inner ring of the engagement map. These gray spaces determine which vectors your U-boat can target. For example, placing the U-boat on the rightmost vector allows it to target sectors 1 and 2. We choose to deploy our U-boat here. If you want to target ships in different sectors later, you can use a movement order to change your vector. The next step is to prepare the convoy cubes for deployment on the engagement map. This convoy consists of 3 blue cubes and 2 red cubes. Place these cubes near the engagement map then roll for each one individually to determine their placement on the map. To deploy a ship, whether it's a red escort cube, blue merchant cube, or green warship cube, roll both a red die and a white die. The red die determines the range, and the white die determines which sector the ship is placed on the engagement map. For our first blue cube, we roll a white 5 and a red 2. The red 2 indicates range 3 by matching the die to the red numbers on the bottom left at the edge of the engagement map, and the white 5 indicates sector 5. We now place the first blue cube in that location. We roll again both dice to deploy our second blue cube, which is a red 2 and white 4. This cube deploys to sector 4 at range 3. Range 3 is the farthest distance from your U-boat, making ships in this range harder to hit. When using the launch torpedoes order, you'll need rolls of 5 or higher at range 3. You can try to reduce this distance later by using a movement order to bring the target closer. To deploy our third blue cube, we roll a white 1 and a red 6. The red 6 indicates range 1, and the white 1 places it in sector 1. Let's skip ahead. After deploying the escorts to sector 2, range 2, we move on to the detection phase. Because escort ships are present on the engagement map, we must make a detection roll. To avoid detection, we need to roll equal to or higher than our current noise level. Our noise level is 4, but we roll a 3, which means we fail the check. The escorts have detected your U-boat, and they're preparing to attack. Since your U-boat is currently surfaced, the red escort cubes will attack using surface gunfire. Roll 2 dice for each escort. With 2 escorts present, that's a total of 4 attack dice. Each die that rolls a 1 or 2 results in a hit and causes damage to your U-boat. You roll a 1, 3, 4, 4. That roll of 1 is a hit, and your U-boat sustains 1 damage in the attack. You immediately roll the dice on the damage chart to determine what kind of damage your U-boat sustains, and you roll a 2, which is damage torpedo tubes. Place a red cube on this result to show that it counts toward your 4 damage threshold for sinking. But there's more. When a critical system, like the torpedo tubes, is damaged, you must block 1 of its order cube slots. This means that until the damage is repaired, you can only assign 1 order cube to launch torpedoes each U-boat phase, reducing your firepower by half. After the detection phase during an engagement, you have the option to break off and retreat. However, in this case, we choose to continue. We've taken minimal damage and want the opportunity to sink some merchant ships. So we move on to the end of turn phase and switch the white cube on the time tracker to nighttime, which also reduces our noise level by 1 on the noise tracker. We finally move on to the U-boat phase, which will allow us to finally act against the convoy in the current engagement. We replenish our 4 order cubes on the order tracker. We then decide to allocate an order cube to the launch torpedoes order. We would have allocated 2 cubes here, but our torpedo tubes are still damaged, and a box is blocked by a red damage cube, cutting our offensive power in half. Next, we allocate 2 more order cubes to the evade order to potentially reduce our noise level this phase. And the last order cube we will keep in reserve for now and use depending on the outcome of our torpedo attacks. Now we will activate the launch torpedoes order. The first step is we will decide to fire a maximum of 2 torpedoes per action cube allocated here. This will reduce our torpedo tracker by 2 by changing a die there from 4 to 2. Now, because the black cube, representing our U-boat, is on the rightmost vector of the engagement map until we move, we can only target sectors 1 and 2. Luckily, there is a blue merchant cube in Sector 1 at range 3. We've launched 2 torpedoes, so we roll 1 die for each. We roll 2 5s, perfect. Since the target is at range 3, we needed a 5 or higher to hit. We allocate the first hit to the blue merchant cube. This removes the blue cube and replaces it with an orange cube, which represents a damaged ship. Orange cubes don't move on the engagement map and are considered to be burning and crippled ships. The second hit is then applied to the orange cube, removing it from the map entirely. We've just sunk our first ship. To record a sunk ship, increase the tonnage sunk tracker on the campaign map by 1 for each orange cube removed from the engagement map. Since we launched torpedoes, we increase our noise level by 1 for each order cube used, in this case, just 1. If we had targeted a red escort cube instead, the noise increase would have been 2 per order cube used. Our noise level is now pretty high at 4, and we wish to reduce it before the detection phase, when the escorts have a chance to fight back. We already have 2 order cubes allocated to the evade order, and so roll 2 dice. We roll a 2 and a 3. Unfortunately, only the 3 rolled reduces our noise level by 1 on the noise tracker. This changes it from a high 4 to a more reasonable noise level of 3. And now, we decide to finally allocate our last order cube to the repairs rest order. We will try to repair the damage to our torpedo tubes so that we can launch even more torpedoes next turn. First, we decide to use it for repairs rather than rest. We roll a single die and get a 4. It's not enough, and we fail to repair the damage. We could possibly use our captain's ability to re-roll a single die per turn at the cost of +1 noise, but finally decide against it, as it would raise our noise level to an alarming level of 4 once again. That wraps up our U-boat phase and brings this quick Lone Wolf U-boat command playthrough to a close. We've already sent our first merchant to the depths, and that's just the opening salvo. Varying missions await, as well as the terrifying experience of dodging depth charges, and your crew's grit will be pushed to the brink. Thanks for diving in. Good luck, Captain.